Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Transform You podcast. I am Nelia.
And I'm Paula, and today our episode is based on self-love being more than just loving yourself. So what do we mean by that? If we say the term self-love, it's not just, oh, I really love myself. So what does self-love actually mean, and what does it mean for you, most importantly?
So for me, it's just utter forgiveness to myself. Just
Okay.
pure forgiveness for past mistakes, maybe past guilt.
Yep.
I think in the past I've felt quite guilty for things I've said to myself, things I've done. So yeah, it's just pure forgiveness.
Lovely. Yeah.
What does self-love mean to Paula?
Self-love for me, I would say, is self-acceptance, accepting yourself exactly where you are. Self-love is something that you need to be constantly working on. So even though you might not be feeling really great in your body, for example, you accept how you are while you're improving that. Self-love for me is constantly doing things that I know are going to make me feel fulfilled, make me feel better.
Yeah.
So knowing myself enough that if I am having a couple of bad days, doing all those things that I would say are self-care in order to show myself a wee bit of love to make myself feel better.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Which then ties into self-love. What actually is it? So we can all have our own definition and we can all have our own take on it and things maybe that we need to work on with our self-love. Remembering self-love is just treating yourself exactly how you would treat others. Would you say that to your best pal? Would
Yeah.
you say that to your child? Treating yourself the same way and giving yourself that same love and respect that you give to others.
Yep.
And that ties into the whole doing things that make you feel good. So if you know that going out drinking every weekend is just making you feel shite Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, tuning into that a wee bit and maybe being like, right, okay, maybe for the next few months I need to kind of rein this in because I need to do a wee bit of more self-love or self-care activities to make myself feel a wee bit better.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think you just have to reflect on what you're doing day to day.
Yeah. And knowing that it is always a journey. So you're not always going to be loving yourself to the same standard that you might be loving yourself just now. Maybe right now you're feeling really good about yourself and you're like giving yourself a lot of self-love, but there will be points where that might come back down. And it's how do we then work on ourselves, work on all these things to then build that self-love back up. So always knowing that it's a journey and a process.
It's also not going to happen overnight.
No, definitely not.
You're not just going to feel like you don't love yourself and then the
Yeah.
next day you'll listen to this podcast and then just be like, oh, guys,
That's me feeling
I'm
better.
perfect. It is quite a hard thing to do. It is a
Yeah.
process.
It takes a lot of work,
Uh-huh.
but it's important work and arguably the most important work because you're the most important person in your
Yeah.
life. And remembering as well that we are all born just love. We are born, we love ourselves.
Yeah.
It is other people, it is situations we're put in, it is society, it is even a teacher from primary school puts something into your head and then you start to believe that. It's taking on loads of things from the outside world to then you take that inside and you end up not loving yourself. And it's about rebuilding that because we all have it within us, whether you believe that or not, that
Yeah.
every child will love themselves. Like we have this natural instinct within us to obviously take care of ourselves to survive. And it's society and all those external pressures that then get embedded into our mind to make us feel shite.
Yeah.
But we need to take responsibility for that. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but we do. So what are the 5 elements then of self-love? The reason I'm saying 5 elements is because when we were kind of chatting about it, we were like, well, here are what we feel are the most important things that contribute to your
Yeah.
self-love. So first of all, we were saying it would be self-compassion. So what does self-compassion mean? How would you speak to someone else? So for me, an example is my wee dog, Marley. Love her to bits. And the way I speak to her is just like as if she is the most amazing thing on this planet because
Yeah.
she is. So she's
is.
been recently learning to walk again after IVDD, which is something that Dachshunds get. And she has been slowly getting herself there. And the whole time, it's just about giving her that wee extra bit of support. And obviously she doesn't understand the words that I'm saying to her, but I'm constantly like, right, come on, Hen, you've got this, and I'm so proud of you. And why, like, would you not speak to yourself like that? We'll do it for everyone else.
You're being her biggest cheerleader.
Yes.
But I think you need to remember that you have to be your own cheerleader. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
And the compassion as well would come down to what you said at the start about forgiveness. So forgive yourself whenever maybe things aren't going to plan, or if you've made a mistake, being compassionate with yourself and understanding that you're human, like embrace your humanness. You are going to make mistakes, and it's about being like giving yourself a wee cuddle and being like, it's fine. You're all right.
100%.
Yes. Okay, so from self-compassion, we can then move on to self-awareness, which is being aware of our thoughts, being aware of our emotions, which then if we are aware of those, then we can be more compassionate to ourselves because we understand what's going on up here. If we have really negative thoughts, then obviously our emotions are going to be reflective of that. We will be feeling like shite, we'll be feeling down, we'll be feeling sad, we'll be feeling guilt. And the thoughts are running wild, which then obviously we can go, okay, if I've got a wee bit of self-compassion, maybe I just need to speak to myself a wee bit kinder today. Maybe I just need to have a wee bit of a slow day. Maybe I need to do something that's going to make me feel good. Would you know when you're being self-aware versus if you're not being self-aware, and how does that make you feel?
I think now I do. Previously, I wouldn't have been
Self-aware.
Yeah. Now I do, and I think that's because I practice meditation a lot.
Yeah.
And that really brings me...
Because you're aware of the thoughts that are going on.
I'm so aware of my thoughts.
Yeah.
And that really brings my focus to how I'm feeling, what I'm saying to myself.
Yep.
And the same with journaling as well. I just jot down all my thoughts, and then I always read back my journal. Like when I journal, I always read it back to myself. And when I read it back to myself, I then go, oh, what am I saying about me? And when it's not so loving towards myself, and then very aware of how I'm feeling.
If you're journaling out those thoughts as well, you see them in paper. So then see when that pops into your head, if say you're in town and you fall or something and you're giving yourself this negative talk, like you're an idiot, you've embarrassed yourself, like that, you'll be aware that those thoughts are there and what you need to do then to change them because you've seen it on paper.
Yeah.
You've dealt with it, like what's popped up meditation, you've been able to put it somewhere else. And all that as well is like self-care. So meditating, journaling, doing things that feel good for you. So doing things for your body, doing things for your mind, doing things that are going to serve your emotions to make them more positive emotions. And when I mention positive emotions, I don't mean being happy all the time, right? Because none of us are happy all the time. That is just unrealistic. And you can't be happy all the time. You wouldn't even know what happiness was if you didn't have sadness.
Exactly.
You wouldn't know what peace was if you didn't have anger.
Yeah.
So being aware of that as well, but self-care is doing all these things that you know are going to be good for all of that. So doing things for your body. So exercising, that doesn't need to be going to the gym and squatting 100 kilograms or running a half marathon. That can be simply doing things for your body like yoga. Even simply in the morning, taking a wee bit of time to give yourself a good old stretch.
Yes.
That is doing something for your body. Equally, it could be what we're putting into our bodies. So what we're eating, if we know that we have IBS and if we eat onions, we're going to get a flare up and our body's going to be like, please no, keep the fucking onions out of me. And we know then, don't eat them because you're just obviously know that your body's not enjoying that. That's not self-care.
It's not.
But if you know, okay, maybe I'll skip the onions today, that's self-care. Yeah. Like you're taking that awareness of, I know my body is going to fucking hate this. Yeah. So you don't do it.
It's the same like if you're lactose intolerant and you keep having dairy. That's not self-care.
Like, fuck it, just geese the dairy.
It's like, it's going to make you feel like shit. And then it's going to make you feel like shit probably for days.
And we all know pals that do that.
Yeah.
We've all got pals who need the oat milk lattes. And sometimes if they're on their holidays or something, they're like, doesn't matter, I'll have it. But then their body is not thanking them for that.
It's not. It's not.
So self-care, lassies, that comes into self-love.
I know.
I'd say that's one of the biggest things. I'd say both of them kind of are like the same thing almost.
Yeah, it's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. And then the mind as well. So whatever you do physically affects your mind. So they always come part and parcel with each other. So whatever you're doing for your mind affects your body, likewise affects your mind. All that stuff that you may be doing, like the movement and all that, or what you're putting in, it's going to affect your mindset. It's going to affect your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions. So things that we can do for our mind are getting ourselves outside. Again, today we've got a beautiful winter's day.
It's actually so gorgeous.
Stunning. Like getting outside and doing things that feel good for your mind. Get yourself in a better headspace. If you know that you're sitting in makes you feel anxious, get yourself out. Like it will honestly do wonders for your mind. And that is self-care. I feel like social media, we've already said this, social media makes self-care to be this aesthetic vibe where everything's perfect, and it's so far from that. All those things obviously do help. There's nothing better than getting yourself into a wee bubble bath, or there's nothing better than when I put on my fake tan. I feel like a new woman. I see when I've not got my fake tan on, I know that thoughts come into my head that are just like, Paula, you look really unwell, hen.
And I know there's going to be people out there that are like haters and like, you
Oh,
should love
they
yourself.
are.
Like,
But
no matter what. Do you know what I mean?
But this is when self-care comes into it, because I think especially as women, it's like, why do you need makeup to love yourself? Or why are you saying that you need to feel tan to love yourself? And it's not about that. Like, I'm saying I accept myself even when I don't, but I equally know things that make me feel better. I would say I'm really comfortable enough to leave the house with no makeup on, no fake tan, because I accept that that's who I am. But equally I know what makes me feel better and what makes me feel more confident.
100%.
And I'm not doing that for anyone else. I'm doing that for me. I've got a boyfriend. It's not as if I'm going out there trying to get validation from other people. My boyfriend sees me as me, and I'm fine with that. And genuinely, I think if you're at a place where you can be okay, just going out to the world with your naked self, fair enough, you won't always feel your most confident. You won't always feel that good, but it's never going to be 100%. Maybe for some people it is, but I'm not there. I'm not 100% in anything, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I will admit that. I will have days where I slip back to my old self, where I will want to leave the house with makeup on because I feel self-conscious. I will want to put certain clothes on because I feel self-conscious about my body.
Yeah.
And I do have to journal about it. I do have to, you know, do meditation. I'm so aware of that. But that's the difference, is now I'm aware.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is how it all ties in perfectly, because we've just spoke about self-awareness, and I am the exact same as you. I know sometimes if I'm going down to Tesco and I'm, you know, my bare face, just out the shower, I'm like, fuck. And we all get that. But it's being aware of that, and actually, see, the more you do it, like the more comfortable you start to feel with it, because you're just like, well, who cares?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm chill.
Yeah, same.
I don't give a fuck. But there are days where I wake up and I really don't feel good about my body, or I don't feel good about the way I feel, just full stop.
Yeah.
But I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And that I used to not be aware of the way I'm feeling, or the way I'm talking to myself. And I didn't know how I could get myself out of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that's when you end up going down in the downward spiral, and that's when you really start beating yourself up, and that's when you really beat up your self-esteem, your self-confidence. And obviously we've both been there before, and these thoughts never leave. It's just you get better at dealing with them, you get better at changing them,
and having the tools to get you out of that spiral, to stop, or just to stop you going down that spiral.
That element of self-care then comes into self-acceptance. So it's actually been like, okay, I'm not looking my best today. Whatever your best may be for you, not for anyone else, but it's actually accepting, right, okay, this is who I am. Or it's if you are starting your own wee journey at the gym and you have maybe a weight loss goal or an aesthetic goal in mind, it's actually being okay with how you are now while you're working towards something else. don't think it should ever be a negative if you are wanting to change your body, because if you're doing that for a good why, as long as it's for you, if you're thinking, I want to get a six pack because I want to impress X, Y, and Z, then that's not a good enough why. If you're doing it because you want to prove to yourself that you have the mental capacity to go and do that, you've got the mental strength.
Yeah, the why has to be good. It has to be positive.
Yes.
It should be for you.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be for anyone else.
In the past, when I didn't accept myself, any goal I was driving towards would be an element of hating myself or an element of punishment. An example of that would be, I always had a weight loss goal in my head. I was just so obsessed with having this perfect body that was never going to exist, because even when I did reach those goals of a perfect physique, I still felt really fucking shite about myself, and I still was never going to speak nicely about myself because I hadn't actually ever gave myself self-compassion. I wasn't self-aware, all of that stuff. I had never known how to love myself. And even when I did start to, you know, get to the size back then that I wanted to be, I still felt pure shite. And it's because I had never actually done any of the work on myself. So right now I'm just like, that's not my most important why, is how I look. Like, that's not up there. Whereas in the past, that would have been the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
And it's really sad when you think back to that, because my self-worth and self-esteem was just so low that nothing was actually going to make me happy at that point, because I was just putting my focus on all this other stuff that wasn't actually important to me. It was important to other people that were round about me.
Similar to mine.
Yeah.
All of my goals were always to do with punishment.
Yeah.
It was punishing myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was always for someone else.
So, for example, if you were exercising, it was to burn calories. Or if you were eating healthy, quotations,
to lose weight.
It was, to lose weight. It wasn't, I'm doing this to
But I was
nourish
also
myself.
doing it for I was losing weight for other people.
Yeah, me too.
Which I think back and I'm like, it makes me so upset
Yeah.
thinking back. And also I was punishing myself because going back to those thoughts of guilt, I was punishing myself because my self-worth, my self-love was so low because I felt so guilty.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't be my true authentic self, or I thought I couldn't be my true authentic self. I was still in the closet. I thought I could never come out. I thought I could never be who I was comfortably, because there were certain people in my life that said that would never be a possibility.
Yeah.
So my self-love and my self-worth was almost nothing.
Yeah.
So I just punished myself. Every day I was punishing myself because that's what people around me were essentially encouraging. That's what was happening.
Yep.
And that's another thing that you need to do to lift your self-love, is you need to surround yourself with people that raise your vibes and lift you up. Because if you're surrounding yourself with people that are pushing you down, that's all you're going to do to yourself as well, which is what I think we've both experienced in the past.
Yeah.
Is we've been around some people that, you know, you punish yourself and they think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, you know, they're rewarding me for doing this essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening to me. So I just kept going. It was a vicious cycle.
That is. And sometimes these people aren't even aware that they're doing that to you. Or maybe that's just how they've been brought up as well, or they've got other people doing that to them. So it's taking that blame away, obviously. Again, when you don't understand yourself, you don't understand self-love, then yes, you are going to be like, that's their fault.
Yeah.
But then it's bringing that responsibility, like you say, to then become aware of that.
Yeah.
And once you do start to build up that responsibility and acceptance and awareness, you then can be like, actually, maybe I do need to get myself away from these people. Maybe they are bringing out the worst in me.
Yeah.
And that moves on to your self-worth and your self-esteem. And that can be damaged over time, and it can take a long time to build that back up. For me, that was my biggest thing when it came to self-love. I had no self-worth and I had zero self-esteem. And that was from years of negative self-talk, years of trying to be perfect, years of just hearing all this terrible stuff from other people. And I then took that in myself. So even if I didn't believe in any of that stuff, I then started to own that in my own head, even though I knew I didn't believe that. Like, so an example of that would be, again, let's go back to our body. I'm aware because I don't want this whole self-love thing to be about your body and how you look. But I just know in the past, for me, that's what I can relate to. So my past experience, that's what really did affect me.
Yeah.
I used to have someone in my ear telling me that my hips had to be smaller and my arse had to be bigger. And see if someone's telling you that and genetically you've got wide hips and not a big arse, like, you're going to take that in and you're never going to feel good enough.
No.
Your self-worth is then going to be like that.
Yeah.
Because you then embody, and you're like, your thoughts start to go wild and you start to pick yourself apart, and then your self-esteem just goes crash. And then you'll compare yourself to everyone who has that ideal physique.
Yeah.
And you're never going to have that because you're your own person. And until you accept that you are your own person, until you become aware of these thoughts actually taking over, that's not you. It's like negative thoughts that have maybe been someone else's beliefs. They're not actually your beliefs. That's like it's really difficult to get to that place. And there's so much work that you need to do to get to that place. Because, like I've said before, I felt really worthless and I had zero confidence my whole life, and that affected everything that I'd done. It affected the opportunities that I would take for myself. It would put barriers in my way. I would never speak out about things. I would be really angry. I would really beat myself up. I would think other people were better than me. I would really build other people up. But if someone complimented me, I would be like, oh,
Same.
like, it
I
made me feel
just want to
ill.
crawl into my shell.
Yes.
And I'd try and convince them that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd just backtrack and be like, no, you're wrong.
You'd think, like I remember thinking that they were lying to me.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
I'd be like, they're talking shite. Like, why would they say that? Or as if it's a big joke. And you'd feel like
they're making fun of me almost.
Yeah. How horrible is that?
Like if I then, so when I like broke up from partners or something and I would date people and they would compliment me, I would think they're fucking with me.
Yeah.
And as soon as I let go of that person and started living, and my pals around me saw that, like they were just like, oh my God, she's stepping into her light. Finally, she's seeing who we see.
Yeah.
Finally.
Like I remember my granny or my mum saying things like, oh, she loves herself, or who the hell does she think she is? Or, oh my God, if she was chocolate, she would eat herself. And I think especially women really get that quite a lot. And we grew up in that generation of the magazines. We grew up in the era of OK Magazine and Hello Magazine and whatever, and they would be comparing women to each other, and they based women's worth on how they looked. It'd be like, look at her in that bikini, or who wore the dress better. And it'd be like, even things like talking about if they were a good mother, are they going for that career, or she thinks she's
brutal.
Yeah.
So brutal. And they really pitted women against each other.
And then you are absorbing all this your whole life. So that goes back to that thing of we're all born love. And it's then all these wee things, our brain starts to soak it all up, and we absorb it and we hold on to it, and we don't even realise how we've got to that point. We've just went over what we would say comes into your self-love and your self-care. So if you're listening, take notes in your phone or take notes in your journal, whatever. This is the steps that we would say are how you prioritise your self-love and your self-care. So starting with you, what was it you would say you made a priority? How did you start to work on that?
I started looking at my habits, my routines.
Yep.
And it goes back to what you said earlier with if you were going out every weekend and noticing that that is affecting your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You really have to look within and think, right, I'm doing this every weekend, and actually I feel really shit about myself for most of the week. Really think, right, I need to think about my habits. I need to think about my routines. Maybe I should have a morning routine. Maybe I should have an evening routine.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking at that, and I wrote everything down.
Yeah.
I wrote what I'm currently doing every day.
Yep.
I wrote down all my habits, and I was really honest with myself, my unhealthy habits, my unhealthy routines.
Yeah.
And then I wrote down what I wanted them to be.
Yep.
And I started trying to stick to them. And every day I wrote down what I was doing, my daily routines,
yep,
and my daily habits. And it really helped trying to stick to them.
And then realising the things that are
Yeah.
contributing to you loving yourself versus
Exactly.
you hating yourself.
Exactly.
Because you would be hating yourself after, like, you know, when you're really hungover to fuck, you've absolutely fucked it, you're riddled with a fear,
Yeah.
you hate yourself.
Because I know that if I do yoga every day, I know that I feel better.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to feel better about myself.
Yeah.
I know that my mind is clearer. I know that I feel better about my body. My thoughts are so much clearer.
Yeah.
But I also know that I make excuses
Yeah.
to not do it.
But then that maybe ties into, like, so the times that you are doing all that stuff, you're feeling more self-aware and you're feeling that wee bit of forgiveness and compassion for yourself.
Exactly.
So it's doing things like that.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, like, a number of things. So your physical, the mental,
Yeah.
the emotional, the spiritual, and the social. So you can really break this down. So make a wee list of, what am I doing for myself physically? What am I doing for myself mentally?
Yeah.
What am I doing for myself emotionally, spiritually, and socially every day that are contributing to my own self-love and my own self-care? Examples could be in the physical. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I exercising enough? Am I eating things that are good for my body? So like we discussed, if you know that having a really milky coffee is going to give you the shits and you are going to be running back and forth to that toilet all day, feeling terrible,
Don't do it.
don't do it, girl. Like, change that. Like, say, okay, for me to give myself a wee bit of self-love and self-care, I'll stick to my wee oat milk lattes.
Yeah.
I just won't have it because I just know
Yeah.
that it's not good for me.
Have a cup of tea instead.
Yes, we are advocates for cups of tea. Same way, like sleep. That is something that's so simple but overlooked. If you don't love yourself and if you're not caring for yourself, you will be like, okay, I'll just stay up that wee bit later to finish off this TV series.
Sleep hygiene is
aye.
so important. But I'll go back to athlete stuff. There is a reason that athletes focus so much on sleep, and there's so much research into athletes, Olympians, and sleep, because if you do not have good sleep, you're unhappy. You're not going to perform well.
And sleep hygiene also ties into the fact that you might be lying every night scrolling through Instagram before you go to bed. If you're doing that, you are only filling your head with comparison right as you go to sleep. Put your phone away. Like, that is part of that. That is part of self-care. If you know that you're staring at something, put it away. Like, be more self-assertive. Being like, okay, this is making me feel like shite. I'm putting that away. So I started going to this counsellor because basically the doctor had sent me here, there and everywhere, gave me medication. I went to speak to other people about different things, and someone basically said, I don't think you are depressed and I don't think you are anxious. What I think you are is someone who has really terrible self-esteem. And I remember sitting there thinking, what? Surely all of this can't be because I don't have any self-esteem. So that's when I started to go to the counsellor. And I remember in the first session sitting down and she just asked me how I was feeling. And I told her, you know, like, I just feel worthless, I feel ugly, I feel really angry all the time. And she basically got me to write all this down and then score it from 1 to 10. So today, how are you feeling about this, this and this? And at the start it was all, I'm feeling angry, like, and that would be 10. I hate my body, that would be a 10. And that's when she'd start to give me all the exercises to go and do for myself, giving me all the self-care stuff. And by the end, it was like, okay, score this. And my scores were way, way down. So just for example, how I felt about my body, or did I feel worthy, was all, like, say back, like 5. So halfway. And that was like the beginning of my wee journey. And that's how I started to get into all this stuff. And that's just a really nice place to reflect. So it's quite a nice thing that you could try by journaling, writing down, okay, what are the main things that you feel are affecting your self-love and your self-care? So for you, maybe it was like, I feel really guilty about X. Mm-hmm. I feel worthless about Y. So the main things that are affecting you, write them down and use it as self-evaluation. Maybe that's what it was called, something like that, like my self-evaluation. Yeah. And it's all to do with self-worth and self-esteem. Okay, moving on to things that you can do to prioritise your self-love and self-care are caring for yourself spiritually. And like I always say, don't run away, please. We are not going to just tell you to get down on your hands and knees and pray. What we're saying about spirituality is doing all those things that we have discussed before. So if you've watched part 2 of Breaking Down to Break Through, we kind of talk about this a wee bit. Your spiritual well-being is prioritising things like meditation, journaling, even like getting yourself into wee communities, so you're connecting with people.
Yes.
That all comes into that. So gratitude journaling is really good because you, especially if you are someone who has really low self-esteem and that's your biggest thing that affects your self-love and self-care, instead of actually those thoughts that are telling you, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, I'll never achieve anything, when you start practicing gratitude and writing down everything in your life that you've got to be grateful for, it's eye-opening because you go, oh, I've never really thought about that, or I've overlooked that. And it doesn't even need to be about you physically. It could be, I'm really grateful that I actually have a really loving family. I'm really grateful that I have my own flat. And it's all these wee things that kind of start to, you change the narrative in your head of how it is you speak to yourself.
Yeah. So if your self-love is struggling with your body image, or it's struggling with your self-worth because of your career or where you're at life stage wise, do that with gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude journaling. So you could write stuff about your body. What are you grateful for?
Yeah.
For your body, and what are you grateful for with your career?
Yeah.
Really look deep into it. So it could be, I am grateful for earning this much in my job. I'm grateful to have this position. I'm grateful to have a body that's able to walk.
Yeah.
You know, I'm grateful to have a body that's able to run.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much to be grateful for. You just have to really look inward.
Yeah.
And when you start writing that down in your journal, that's really quite powerful.
Yeah.
And I think when you're feeling quite low and you're feeling all these thoughts of low self-worth, and you start writing it down and you start really looking into gratitude, it starts shifting your mindset into more of an abundance mindset.
Yeah. And it also then makes you more compassionate with yourself as well.
Yeah.
So like we discussed at the start, self-compassion, it's, okay, I recognise that I do have all these other good qualities, so why am I really focused on these things that I would class as not so good qualities?
Yeah.
And it's that, would I ever pick anyone else apart for that? Would I ever speak to anyone else like that? No. Because when you're writing down your gratitude, it's actually feeling good and feeling joy about things that you've got in your life.
Yeah.
And that can sound about like wishy-washy or a wee bit airy-fairy, but it does really work, and there's so much evidence and science backed into it. We're not neuroscientists, right? But there's loads of books out there that really show you how powerful, when you start meditating as well, your brain literally changes. You can tell the difference between someone's brain who meditates and someone's brain who doesn't. So there's gratitude meditation that you can do as well, which is amazing. If you don't want to write that down in a journal, it's even just like sitting there thinking about everything you're grateful for. That does change your brain, and you can literally see that on a brain scan. So there's evidence that this stuff does work, and it's worked for us. So
yeah, they're my favorite meditations to do in
gratitude
Shavasana.
ones. Yeah, they're really, really nice, and they can bring up a lot of different emotions as well. Get ready to do the work.
Do it.
And prioritising self-care and self-love, like I just mentioned, is with the spirituality, the community element of it. So actually putting yourself into different situations. So connecting with others, maybe that's then putting yourself in different social situations, having new hobbies, or tapping into actually stuff that really fulfill you. So we're all different. So a hobby for me is going to be different for you. And you might not actually realise something that you really enjoy because you've surrounded yourself with people who maybe don't align with you. Maybe you're just doing stuff that they like. And it's taking that quality time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Again, going to things like the Self-Love Club, we call it that for a reason. It is about taking time for you to connect with others, to take time for yourself, because you're doing activities like yoga, cold water. You're even like, it's even like the drive there could be a wee bit of self-care. Like you might just sit there and listen to your favourite music, listen to your favourite books, or put on some really good tunes.
Why?
Stuff that you know, you're like, I feel great after this.
I honestly sometimes find just going on a solo drive one of the most therapeutic things.
Yep.
And just putting on some music or putting on a podcast, or genuinely sometimes if I just drive in silence when it's like in the countryside and it's like this morning driving here, it was so stunning.
A mindful drive.
And I was like, it's so nice. This is so beautiful. That to me was therapy.
Yeah.
It was so, so nice.
It is. It's like self-therapy.
That was like a gratitude journal for me because I was like, I'm so grateful for this. This is so beautiful. I'm so grateful. Was no longer scattered.
And you're really conscious of what it is that you're doing in that moment. So you're not just driving and letting your negative thoughts run wild. You're taking a wee moment to actually embrace
I was
what
in
is
the
going on.
moment.
Yes.
It was so stunning.
It's a really nice place to be because if you're in the moment, you're not in the past and you're not in the future. Which then moves us nicely on to living consciously and living with purpose. And what do we mean by that? So having something every single day that is your wee bit of purpose, and that doesn't need to be anything that's too fancy. It doesn't need to be, oh, I've got this great job. It can just be something that is every day I feel good because I look after my dog. Every day I feel good, or I've got a sense of purpose because I call my gran to make sure she's okay. There's something every day that gives you a wee bit of purpose.
Yeah.
That is so important for everything to do with your self-love and your self-care, because you then obviously feel really good about yourself. It gives you a wee sense of importance almost. Not in the way like, oh, I'm better than you. Like in the way of, I know that I'm making a difference.
It's self-worth.
Yeah. Self-worth, that's it. Which then obviously goes back to the whole 5 different things. So hopefully by now you can see that all this kind of ties in with each other.
It's all connected. It all interlinks.
Yeah. So it's not just working on one of them, it's kind of working on them all. And you might need to work on one a wee bit more than others. And while you are working on your self-love and self-care journey, making sure that you are setting yourself standards. So having some integrity with it, maintaining your morals, maintaining your ethics, whatever is important for you, not anyone else. That is so important in your journey. When I started working on my own self-love and self-care, I would say the standards that I set for myself would be that I want to be a kind and caring person. I want to be able to give value to others. So every day then I would make my wee purpose or living consciously, trying to sort of like educate myself, which will help me, but then I can then share that knowledge with others. So that was like my sense of purpose, my sense that like my why. And then with that came positive self-talk. Like I say, that I'd then be given to others. I'm able to share with others. That's why I really love yoga as well. As much as I do it for myself and I know it makes me feel really good, once I learned how good that made me feel, I was like, I need to share this with people. The people need to know. And I scream it all the time from the rooftops. I'm like, yoga saves lives, and really it did change mine. So then once I realised that, I then thought, okay, a purpose for me, or me being conscious about what I'm doing here or living up to my own morals, would be I need to share this with others. We can all end up getting stuff like that is important to us, and it doesn't need to be focused on a job, or it doesn't need to be focused on giving to others in that sense. It could just be something you find something that's important to you as making yourself a nice meal every night. or the standard you set for yourself is that you have a standard of health that you need to maintain or you want to maintain. So then maybe when you're not living up to that, then you don't feel as good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And the more that you start to love yourself, the more self-assertive that you will become. So I used to be the sort of person who, like I say, would not accept compliments. I'd be the sort of person who I let someone basically determine my worth. I let someone else, not just one person, maybe other people determine how I felt about myself. I let other people be
So did I.
more important than myself.
Same.
And you really need to change that. If you're not your number one focus, if you think that you're here and others are there.
I dimmed my light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To shine it on others.
Same.
Yeah. I've done
time.
that for years. Yep. And when you start to work on your self-love and self-care, I feel like naturally you become more self-assertive. Like you'll stick up for yourself more.
Yeah.
You'll actually set a higher standard for yourself. You'll say, I'm not going to accept someone speaking to me like that. I'm not going to accept someone treating me like that. I am not going to accept anyone else making me feel like this, because now I know it's my responsibility. And if someone is making me feel like that, then maybe they aren't my person, or maybe they aren't going to be in my life.
Yeah.
And it's about that respect that you then have for yourself, because you've set the standards so high, because you've been on this self-love journey.
Yeah.
Whereas before, if you're not loving yourself, then you will accept the bare minimum from people. You will accept maybe being cheated on. You will accept maybe people speaking down to you.
Yeah.
And that's hard to take.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about someone just now who, I mean, we've all said this before, like, oh, why would she take him back? He cheated on her. Maybe that's just someone who isn't giving themselves a lot of self-love, and someone who just needs to learn that. So if you're thinking about a pal, we've all had it. Like, you know, it's happened to us all. Try and be a wee bit more compassionate with that person, because that person just is not giving themselves enough self-love. They don't feel, maybe they don't feel good about themselves. So see that message, it's so cliche, right? And it's like, you need to love yourself first before you can love someone else. People say that all the time, but the way I would interpret that is, once you love yourself, you're not going to accept someone treating you in a way that you don't want to be treated. The only thing that you're going to accept is someone giving you the same love that you give yourself. And I think that's the important thing to remember about that statement. It's not, God, I need to love myself because I'm worthless if I don't, or no one's going to love me if I don't. It's more about the standards that then you'll accept, and it's about the sort of people you let into your life.
Yeah. And I think so sometimes it takes more than one moment.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I said, it does not happen overnight.
No.
For me, you know, it happened once. I got cheated on right in front of me. And I stayed with him.
Watched
You
it
know. Literally watched it happen.
Yeah.
Still went home with him.
Yep.
Stayed with him. Then finally came to my senses, broke up. But I continued to not have love for myself. And that cycle repeated over and over.
Yep.
And things like that kept happening to me. And then I'd have moments where I'd wake up and be like, oh, no, what am I doing? And then I'd go through a smaller self-love journey, but it was never big enough. I never committed to it enough.
Yeah.
And then finally I went, no.
So maybe back then you were not self-assertive at all, because you did not stick up for yourself.
Yeah.
But how could you be if you already feel worthless and you're already not doing all the things that you should have been doing, like, you know, to care for yourself?
Yeah.
And I imagine you also thought that other people were better than you.
Oh, yeah. 100%. You know, I was just living in that life of everyone was better than me.
That's why it's important to not give all your love to your partner, particularly if you don't give any to yourself.
Yeah.
Because then that person is on a pedestal,
Yeah.
and it's just always going to make you feel worse.
Yeah.
Hopefully your partner is going to support you in your self-love journey if this is something that you're going to go through.
Yeah.
And it is difficult. but it might be the best thing that you ever do, which obviously it was for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're giving far too much to others, you have nothing left to give to yourself. Yeah. So when you are putting people on the pedestal, well, you're just in the background all the time. Yeah. So, you know, and maybe sometimes we keep ourselves in the background to protect ourselves, because if we're in the background, then we're less likely to be judged. If we're in the background, then we are less likely to be seen. And maybe that's a comfortable place when you don't really have a lot of self-love and you're not giving yourself a lot of self-care. Because if you're just kind of quiet about it, then that's like you're protecting yourself almost, isn't it? It's like the way you would cover yourself up if you're feeling ashamed about your body. It's like you'll do anything to kind of just protect yourself and keep yourself feeling comfortable. So if you are recognizing some of the stuff that we are talking about, try the things that we've mentioned, you know, the stuff for your physical and your mental health, the things for your emotional and spiritual well-being, and getting yourself out there into different social situations, finding new connections, and then working in all those elements. So working on your self-compassion, your self-awareness for your emotions and your thoughts, your self-care for your body, all the things you do for your body and your mind, learning to accept yourself exactly where you're at. So maybe being like, okay, I'm not comfortable with a body image just now, or I'm not comfortable with being in this position in my work, but I know where I want to get to. Just learning to kind of accept that you're a human, embrace that humanness, and just focus on developing as you go. And it's okay to develop, it's okay to change. Sometimes it's like, well, why would you want to change yourself? But I feel like that's a good, like, nothing should ever be stagnant. And then once you start to accept yourself where you're at, that will then promote your self-worth and your self-esteem through all the things you'll do that will build your confidence.
Yeah. A good exercise to do goes back to talking to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think one of the most powerful things I ever did.
And the first time you do that will be extremely uncomfortable and extremely difficult.
And you can just look at yourself in the mirror and point out all the things that you love about yourself.
Yeah. Or say them out loud even.
And just honestly say them out loud, because you cannot start this self-love journey without talking to yourself nicely. Yeah. You have to start.
The words that you say to yourself will really affect everything. They'll affect your mood. Yeah. They'll affect your thoughts. Obviously, they two do come. If you're feeling low, you're going to have negative thoughts. Yeah. If you're having negative thoughts, then you're going to feel low. But if you start to, you know, change how you're speaking to yourself, challenging that. So whenever those thoughts come up of, I'm not enough, or I'm fucking worthless, or, oh my God, I'm so fucking stupid, actually then saying to yourself, well, no, I'm not, because there's evidence that I'm not. And so when you start changing those words and speaking to yourself nicely, challenging those thoughts, you will start to notice that wee boost in your mood, and you'll start to notice how you feel differently about yourself. And another nice exercise you could try is, I know I've mentioned before, like the I am affirmations. That's obviously a really good one. But in terms of just like giving yourself a wee bit of self-care, writing down what you feel would be a perfect day for you, and writing down how your morning would look, writing down all the nice things you would do for yourself, writing down maybe all the nice things that someone else would do that would make you feel good, and also writing down like a wee guilty pleasure. So something that you might feel a bit guilty about, or something that you might say, oh, I don't deserve that. Write it down, and that's your perfect day. So it's going to look different to anybody else's, but that's quite nice, because then you're like, okay, I know what I need every day in order to feel good. It's quite a nice wee exercise to do.
Your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure? Going for a drive and getting myself a nice big sugary coffee and wee cakes.
We're the same person.
Oh, like that is
literally mine.
And I would never have done that. Whereas I'm like, I do that all the time now anyway. Like I just treat myself all the time.
Literally the same as me.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same.
Like that is so good.
Yeah,
or
so
also
good.
Another guilty pleasure of mine would be like having one of those days where you are just in the house. As much as I'm like love exercise and all that, some days I just love a wee self-care day of being in the sofa, with a blanket, my heating on, Marley there, get myself some nice snacks and binge watching telly.
Binge watching. Oh, I love it. And I have the 2 dogs and they're just snuggling in.
That's
and
a good guilty pleasure day.
Cup of tea.
Yeah. And that is self-care.
So good.
And that is just showing yourself a wee bit of love. I do that now when I feel like I really need it. Like, you know how fucking busy I am. And I've been told I take on too much. So that for me is like...
You have to slow down.
Slow down, hen. Take a wee chill day.
Yeah.
And I really now appreciate that. Whereas in the past, I would have felt guilty about all of that stuff.
I know, but I do it now and I'm like,
oh God, I need this.
Good.
So plan out your perfect day and treat yourself to your perfect day. Don't wait on someone else doing it for you.
Yeah.
Do it for yourself.
How good.
And let's have a wee word of wisdom. So, remembering that you were born enough. We were all born enough. So, it's been society, it's been other people's beliefs and opinions that have been put onto you, which have made you feel worthless or not enough. You were born perfect and you are perfect exactly how you are, and learn to just embrace your humanness.
You are enough.
You are enough.
Just as you are.
A brilliant book for starting to feel enough and starting to feel worthy. I've already mentioned this book, Marissa Peer, You Are Enough. Stunning book. Vex King, Healing is the New High. Really good if you are in a slump and you're pulling yourself out of there. And another book, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think.
Love that book.
Full
so good.
of wee nuggets of wisdom.
So good.
Good for changing your thoughts. Good for working on all sorts. There is literally 101 essays in there that will change the way you think.
Yeah,
so read
good.
that book. It is really, really good.
I think it's good as well if you're just getting into reading these sorts of books, because
it's light.
It's light.
And it's short chapters. Yeah. Very, very short.
I think it's quite a good one to get into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you got your book with you today?
I've got my book.
What have we got today?
I've got a little poem.
What's the title?
Love yourself, accept yourself. Ta-da! Be brave enough to take off the mask you wear out there. Get to know who you are underneath. Be vulnerable enough to accept your flaws. Know that they are what make you human. They are what make you real. Be confident enough to cherish your strengths. Don't minimize them. Don't hide them. They are your beautiful gifts to share with the world. Be brave enough to say, all of this is who I am. I am messy, beautiful, and all of the in-between. I am proud of how far I've come. I am proud of who I am. I am proud of who I am becoming.
Oh my! Every time, hen, you get me right in the feels.
I wrote that ages ago.
That is fucking stunning.
Yeah, I wrote that in like November, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what I picked up on that on the first line was, embrace your flaws. We all have them. None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
If you have anything in your mind that is, I'm not perfect, then
you're
never going to be. And see, the moment you start to embrace that and just allow yourself to be imperfect.
Yeah.
To be imperfect is to be human. And I know I keep throwing this human word about, but honestly, we're not. And I feel like maybe social media is a big part to play in that, or those fucking magazines we spoke about.
Yeah.
Like, none of us are. No one is naturally airbrushed. We all have pores that are too big. We all have spots. We all have frizzy hair. Like, embrace it. Learn to be okay with your flaws. Learn to actually say, I'm a woman. Of course, I've got hips.
Yeah.
Of course, I've got stomach rolls when I sit down.
Stretch marks.
Yeah.
Like,
that's it.
And I do get, and like, that's like the first line, be brave enough to do it. I do get that it's scary. It is scary, but
it'll be scary at first, but the more you do it,
it's
the
freeing.
easier it becomes.
It's so freeing just to be able to not give a shit what people think. It's so freeing. It's such an easier way to live your life.
Freedom is like a nice way to put that.
Yeah.
Like, see, when I started my self-love journey, once I really got into it, I felt free.
Yeah.
I felt like,
it's so freeing.
Oh my God.
I felt like before I was in prison.
Yes, I was. Like, I think I
living
spent
in jail
20 years of my life hating myself. I spent 28 years of my life like not being true to who I was.
We were physically we were, because we were covering up constantly,
Yeah.
and like we would be like this with our sleeves, like
Yeah.
clenching our sleeves,
And like punishing yourself.
and now we can wear whatever the fuck we want and not give a shit.
Yeah. And
Like,
do all these nice things for ourselves
and
because we know we
emotionally and
matter.
mentally,
Yeah.
we are free
Yeah.
because we love ourselves.
Yep.
And it's not in, sometimes you hear people be like, oh, they pure love themselves, but it's not in that way. We love ourselves because it's freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
maybe
we're
one of the
free.
biggest barriers that we face. See that wee sentence, ugh, they love
Oh,
themselves.
I know.
That would maybe crush so many people's wee journeys. And see if someone ever said that to me now, I'd be like, too fucking right, I love myself. Like, I love myself enough to not take shite off people. I love myself enough
Yes.
to make sure that I get my 7 hours sleep every night. I love myself enough to know that,
To set boundaries.
yeah, whenever I'm feeling shit, to take myself away. That's what
Yeah.
loving yourself is.
Do you know what though? People that say that, they don't love themselves.
They don't. And actually,
And
maybe
they need to go through their
we
own
need to be a bit
journeys.
kind to those people. Yeah. Instead of being annoyed.
Kill them
So,
with kindness.
always, we always say that.
Yeah.
But just know that when you love yourself, you're just setting yourself a high standard.
Exactly.
And we should all be setting ourselves high standards.
Keep them high, girls.
Yeah. And when you love yourself, you're true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for years, we were not true to ourselves. We gave too much to others. And until you learn to love yourself, I feel like you'll always do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's freeing. Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust us, gals.
Trust us that you matter and you are enough, no matter what other people have led you to believe. And see if you do have people saying to you, oh my God, you love yourself now. Like, own it. Absolutely own
Yeah.
it. Because what we are
Do what
telling
Paula
you is,
says. Just be like, yes,
yeah,
I
do.
do.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Thank you
because
very
I
much, I
absolutely
do.
do. And that's because you're comfortable enough. So I know that I'm comfortable enough to say, loving myself isn't me thinking that I'm superior to anyone. Loving
Yes.
myself isn't me thinking that other people are shite. Like, no one is affected negatively by me loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that impacts all the relationships in my life very positively.
Yeah.
Because the more I love myself, the better I show up
Yeah.
for others. And the more I love myself, the more I can give to others. And the more I love myself, actually, my mood's better. So I'm nicer to be around.
And it goes back to like what self-love means to me. So when people say shit like that to me, I forgive him.
Yeah. I'm like, that's
Self-love to me is forgiveness. So it's like, okay.
And also, that's you being aware of yourself, because then you are aware that if you are feeling like that, you're feeling worthless. So maybe that's how that person's feeling.
Yeah.
So listen, guys, love yourself. We know that you're not walking about stepping on other people to love yourself.
Aye.
It's only insecure
Aye.
people that think like that.
Exactly. We love ourselves.
Here's to loving yourself.
Why?
Oh, aye.
We pure love ourselves.
Aye, like that state they too. Oh God, there they've got a self-love episode. That's all we fucking need. And by the way,
dear.
if I was chocolate, I'd eat myself. And it's not because I think that I'm delicious. It's because I just love chocolate.
And we'd be twirls.
Yes. I'd be a big orange twirl
Yeah.
because of my orange hair.
And we'd be in the packet together.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
You'd be one of the wee caramel ones.
Yeah, stunning.
Yes.
Tea.
By the way, they're great. If you never get a hold of one of them, get them at
And if they're
B&M.
rare,
Oh, hi.
you have to. Oh, so good.
You are rare. Oh,
Thanks. So are the orange ones, though. You can only get them certain places.
yeah, it's true. Aye.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a thing as well. Like,
Oh God.
see when you, like, so growing up, I would say that I would be the sort of person who wouldn't have took shite off people, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. But that wasn't me being self-assertive. So there's a difference there. So for example, growing up, being a ginger nut in Glasgow, you get slaughtered.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I would have retaliated with anger when I was younger and been like, fuck you. I know I've got ginger hair like that. Whereas now, because I love having ginger hair, and now I'm like,
Yes.
this is great. So if anyone ever said that to me now, it would just like,
Yeah.
like water off a duck's back. Like I would
Aye.
just be like, okay, so that's because I'm okay with that. But back in the day when I thought I was being like self-assertive, I would have reacted with anger. Do you know what I mean? So
It's defensive.
It was defensive. And when you are defensive like that, then you're not comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
So see, when you get comfortable with yourself, honestly, see people's like insults or whatever.
I just don't care.
You actually don't care.
Really don't care.
So if you're going to do it for anything, do it for peace inside of you.
Yeah.
Like, it just brings you so much peace. See, starting a podcast, right? Anything that you do, see, even putting yourself out there on social media, you open yourself up to being scrutinised.
Yep.
You open yourself up to being picked apart, to being like, oh, you pick, honestly, you're signing up for it, right? Because we can't change people. Like, I was howling the other day on TikTok. This like old man left like a yawning emoji on our video.
Cool.
And I'm like, great. Thanks, Jim, for the yawning emoji.
But do you know what? Engagement.
Here. Thanks,
It's
buddy.
still engagement.
Still got an extra wee comment.
So,
But I'm just like, so you think we're boring? That's fine. There's plenty of other people who don't. And because we love ourselves, we're like, that's all right. If you're bored by it, that's fine. Because I'm confident enough in what I'm doing, buddy. I was howling.
I know, same.
I was like, gonna someday like get their dad.
Aye.
Why is he like slating on our comments?
Aye.
Like, get to fuck Jim.
Listen to the Transfer Me pod.
And I'm just like, why are you even here?
Aye, maybe he needs to listen to this.
He needs to be a bit.
episode.
So, Jim,
Aye, he needs a bit of self-love.
if you're listening,
Aye, come on, Jim.
we hope that we've inspired you, and we hope that we've wakened you up.
A wee bit of self-love, Jim.
Aye.
Come on, Jim.
And then you might show up better in your relationships. Maybe Betty will be happy.
Oh, aye.
Give her a wee bit of love. Oh, dearie me. Here we go. Well, we hope that you've taken some inspo from this. And as always, a huge, huge, huge thank you for all the love, all the messages, all the
Thank
support.
you so much, honestly.
We love you. So if you don't love yourself yet, we love you.
We love you.
Thank you. And oh no, we
I
won't.
thought you were going to say thank you and good night.
Thank you and good
Thank
night.
you and
I was
good
going to say
night.
thank you and the next episode, but no, we keep that a secret, don't
Keep it
we?
a secret.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.